All right, so today we're going to deep dive into something that's been all over the news lately. And, I know a lot of you are really interested in this case.
Yeah, this is one that it just keeps coming up, even after all this time. And it's
Understandable why, too, right? I mean, we're
absolutely.
talking about Yolanda Saldivar being denied parole.
Yeah, and I think for anyone who maybe needs a refresher, Yolanda Saldivar is the woman who was convicted of murdering Selena Quintanilla Perez.
Selena, of course, the Tejano music star.
Exactly. And I think it's worth noting for those who might not be as familiar with Tejano music, it's this incredibly vibrant blend of like Mexican and American musical traditions that was,
Yeah.
well, it was huge, especially in the Southwest. And Selena, she was like a true icon.
No, she was massive. Her influence on music and on culture, you can still feel it today super strongly.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. And, that's part of why this case, I think, continues to resonate so much with people.
For sure. And so what we're going to do today is try to unpack what went into the parole board's decision to deny Saldivar parole and kind of revisit, the whole tragic story.
Yeah, and I think our mission here is to like really dig into the recent reports,
Hmm.
look at the details of the decision and try to put it all in context,
Okay.
because this crime, it really had such a profound impact.
Okay, so the parole board's decision came down on March 27th, 2025.
Right.
The Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles denied Yolanda Saldivar's request for early release.
And Saldivar, she was 64 at the time, and I think it's important to remember, she was convicted of murder with a deadly weapon back in 1995.
Right.
So this parole review, it's a process where the board considers a whole bunch of factors to determine if an inmate should be released early after serving part of their sentence.
And in her case, after reviewing everything, they decided to deny her request for parole, and she won't be eligible for parole again until March of 2030.
Wow, so at least another 5 years.
At least another 5 years, right?
One of the things that really stands out to me in all of this is the reason the parole board gave for denying her parole.
What do you mean?
Well, the reports indicate that the main reason was the nature of the offense. And this suggests that the board really focused on the specifics of the crime and how serious it was when making their decision.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, because when a parole board is considering something like that, they're looking at things like how violent the crime was, the circumstances surrounding it, the impact it had on the victim and the victim's family.
Exactly. And in this case, the parole panel even went a step further. They said that Saldivar's actions that led to Selena's death showed a conscious disregard for the lives and safety of others.
That's pretty strong language.
Yeah, and I think it really highlights how seriously the board viewed her actions.
Absolutely. And, I think to really understand how the board reached this conclusion, we need to go back and revisit the original crime, which happened on March 31st, 1995.
Yeah, that's a date that I think is seared into a lot of people's memories.
Absolutely. And at the time, Selena, she was just 23 years old.
At the height of her career.
And Saldivar, she was managing Selena's boutiques and she was running her fan club.
So someone who was pretty deeply involved in Selena's professional life.
Exactly. She had gained a lot of trust.
And then there are these accusations of embezzlement.
Right. It came out that Selena's family had started to suspect that Saldivar was misappropriating money, and so Selena decided to confront her about it,
And this all culminated in that confrontation at the hotel.
where Saldivar ended up shooting Selena.
Yeah, she shot Selena in the back as Selena was trying to escape.
It's just such a senseless act of violence.
And the aftermath was just devastating. Selena, she actually managed to make it to the hotel lobby before collapsing.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that at the time. Just unbelievably tragic.
And even though medical professionals tried to save her, the injuries were just too severe.
It's just heartbreaking, and after the shooting, Saldivar, she actually had a standoff with the police.
Right, she
Well,
didn't surrender immediately, and I think that whole standoff, it probably contributed to how the whole incident was seen, by law enforcement and maybe even by the parole board later on.
right. So throughout all of this, it's important to remember that there are different perspectives on what happened.